and welcome to another session of Music Matters with Ev. And I am so pleased to have the opportunity to interview someone who I met many, many years ago and have been consistently impressed with her vocals and her musicality. So I am introducing Beth Ford.
Hello. Let's not talk about how many years ago it might be. Time has just soon passed, but it's been too long since I've seen you. It's nice to see you today.
And you too. So are you well?
I am really well. I'm enjoying the sun being out. I'm enjoying the spring, and I'm keeping up with feeling all the good things that are going on, and trying not to look at all the news. Yeah,
Good.
it's keeping me going.
Good plan. Good plan. Okay,
Yeah.
so let's go right back to the beginning. Where did it all start for you, Beth? Music.
Music and singing has been a part of my life. I think I just must have just come out singing. And I always go back to the story of when I was a brownie. And instead of helping elderly people across the road, I would actually sing for my badges. And Brown Owl used to say, yeah, that's a voice right there. And that was from about 9. And then I started songwriting at that age. And some of the tunes that I wrote at that age, I still use now.
Wow.
So it's just always been a part. And I think what's the best thing about it is this being able to touch someone and being able to help someone to feel more relaxed when you're singing. So for me, that's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And just to put things into perspective, where are you from, Beth?
Well, the land of singers, Wales.
That's right. Absolutely right.
Yeah, well, I think it's something to do with the lilt being in the accent already. And it's sort of like the rolling hills of Wales and mountains. We've got quite big mountains too. And so I think the accent, and naturally we're singers and, all the kind of male voice choirs. Obviously I wasn't in one of those, but we're sort of used to coming together and singing. So yeah, I was from Wales, South Wales. I'm just across the bridge now in Monmouthshire, so I can wave at you in Bristol. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's cool. So what about the instrumentation as well? Because we know the singing. We know the singing. So your instrumentation, when did that start?
I started playing a little bit of piano, probably around about 9 or 10 years old. And then I moved on to playing flute. I found that tricky to sing and play flute at the same time.
Yes,
So I've just throw in the flute, but it really helps with your breast support when you're singing, because you just really need it because it's another wind instrument. And obviously learning the treble clef and learning to read music and this being part of an orchestra as well. So the flute is quite useful, but I don't play that as much. I have a cello behind me. I don't think you can see it on screen today. You can probably no doubt see a few guitars behind, but they're my daughters. Yes. And then mainly you'll notice that I'm at my piano. So that's the main instrument that I write on. But I think you, Everton, were part of saying to me, do you know what, play the piano yourself? Because I've always relied on someone else to play it for me, never thinking it was a strong skill. And one of these things this last year, it's like, well, who else is going to play the piano? I'm going to have to play it. So
wow, I am so pleased to hear that. Why? I tell you why. Because Beth, look at the genre of music, look at the realm of artists. The women who sing and play are in a niche.
Oh,
There's not an overwhelming majority. So you've almost hardly got any competition.
Oh, well, this is good news. You see, actually, it seemed to be that there are a couple more Beth Fords out there. There's one, if you do Google me, there's one who was doing the songs I was doing 20 years ago. So it's nice to know there is a niche. That's the thing about the folk clubs, is that you can't take your nice upright piano with you. So you end up taking a keyboard, which is not as good. So what's nice actually is that when I'm doing my folk clubs, I can go to as many as I want these days without needing to worry about leaving the house. You can go to 3 in a night if you want to. And I can actually play proper real sound piano once you get the sound right. So it's really lovely because a guitar obviously is much more portable.
Yes. Okay, so were you in any, apart from the school orchestras and choirs, did you form any bands yourself when you were honing your art?
Yes, I have always appreciated working with someone on stage. So it's naturally been a duo. At the moment, my duo is sometimes a duo, sometimes a trio, and that's My Girl Friday. And we do a cappella songs, and we've been able to meet in the garden when we could last year. So there's a few things flying around. But then we've done the whole thing of recording and sending to each other and putting things together. So My Girl Friday has been the Beth Ford band. I think I had, when you and I spent time together, there was a jazz circuit. So dinner jazz, weddings, things like that. That was the performance that I went out to do with the Beth Ford band. So that would be duo, trio, quartet. That's been the biggest I think I've done is a quartet. That's enough people to manage, I think.
Absolutely. Okay, and I also need to ask you, because we need to let everybody know, when did you start to take on the teaching responsibility?
I looked at voice, so I use voice, actually I use singing to help with spoken delivery as well. So a lot of the things that I do with teaching are about connecting the singing and the speaking voice. And I did that as part of my degree back in the 90s. And then I just developed from there. So I was doing a lot of drama teaching, but actually finding that I was writing songs and talking about how we sing when you go into music theatre teaching. And then that developed from doing group teaching to one-to-one. And one-to-one I absolutely love, because you really do get to connect with that individual and help them along their way. So yeah, and I'm lucky, because yes, I'm a singer-songwriter. Yes, songwriting is my first love, and then being able to sing your own material. But actually, on a par with that, I do love teaching, like yourself. I love to be able to help people. So during all of this, it's lovely to still be able to do that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Excellent. And where has your performance taken you? Have you been outside of the UK? Have you done any European stuff? Have you been across the waters?
Mostly Canada. I found them a very appreciative audience, but then the parts of Canada I was singing in was really quite a touristy place. So you get a lot of Americans coming over as well. And when you want to put on a gig, it just happens. They just make it possible. It's a lovely audience. So I'm doing a lot of Americana type of music there and my own stuff, but they really do say, oh, you're an up and coming artist, we'll support you. And that's been and also an Edinburgh Festival as well. That's been lovely, again quite transient, and that was an absolute pleasure performing at the festival, because you've got lots of very creative people there to be around. Yeah, but now, of course, I can be performing across the world all of the time.
Exactly.
And actually there are so many silver linings, I call them, to all this, because I can be, going up to the Chester Folk Festival and connecting with people there who perhaps I've seen at a gig, in Monmouthshire, but not being able to see again, and perhaps thinking, oh, well, maybe I'll catch them next time they're around. No, I can actually connect with them now and go around. And on our folk clubs, we've got people from Massachusetts, people from Australia, and it's, there are silver linings. Yeah.
Okay, so you've segued into the next question, which I was going to ask. That's okay, that's fine, because there's so much to discuss with you, which I want to get out. But let's tackle it then. So what happened for you come this time last year in terms of your musicality, your output, etc.?
Well, I needed to recreate myself very quickly to move everything online. And I'm known by friends as a bit of a Luddite, a bit of a stuck in the me and technology don't get along. But actually, I've found that once you are, forced to do these things, actually, I'll let you into a secret. I actually quite enjoy it. And I'm sitting editing music. I would prefer to go to the studio. I would prefer to be in the recording studio. I've worked with this fantastic producer. And we produced a CD not long, which was children's music, which is really lovely to work with him, because he'll suddenly throw in a mandolin and all of this and the other. And I just look at all his little kind of buttons that he's pushing, thinking, what do they do? Well, I know what some of them do now, because every time I do a live stream, I've got to be thinking, right, if that's what's the feedback that's causing this and all the other. So I'm enjoying working with audiovisual equipment. I never thought I would. And I'm enjoying editing my own music. But that's the thing, that the nerves come. I still get that high after I finish performing, even though, but the only thing is, when you switch off, it's like, oh, it's very quiet now. There's no, where's the green room to go and have a drink with people? That's the only difference, is that you still get that buzz, you're still performing. I love getting people's comments because they're saying, oh, hi, Beth, we're enjoying what you're singing. And being able to record stuff yourself. And when you learn to put harmonies over it, there are so many things out there to help you as well to be able to do that. So I do think it's brought my songwriting more to the front, I think. But I miss that connection with the other performer where you're live. And I know from choir singing, you and I have run choirs, and when you feel all of that, and I know that it's hard for a lot of the choristers because they miss that. But imagine when we're all back together doing that, that'll be even more special, I think.
Wow.
Yeah.
And I like the way how you put it earlier. You said that we can always look for the silver lining in whatever. And
there's no good and bad. Yeah, there's no good and bad about this. It's not like all the good side. There's just silver linings all over the shop, really. Yeah.
Excellent. Okay, so what do you see of the future?
I think that, like, if I can say, right, I've got to get on board with all the social media and the way that the world is moving. I think you said to me once, it's about, you need to do your stuff and then you need to do the social media as well. That's actually, that's weighed up with it's a lot more social media that we're doing, and then I thought, well, where do I put myself? Well, I think, as long as you do it well, you can just put yourself anywhere and everywhere to get noticed. I do think that if people starting out now, they're thinking about what they're doing, if you do it with your intention of what your brand is, that's what I'm learning. And I've been doing sort of free business courses just to figure out how do you really think with your business head, what your branding is, as long as you're consistent. And I say this to myself, then you can put yourself out there. So obviously there's so much out there to see. It's hard to see wood for trees. But I think if you're consistently doing it, people are all about listening to music online. And there's also the difference between where people, the general public, find their music and where music lovers go. So I would say things like Patreon are more of a music lovers, I will support the artist, whereas YouTube, Spotify, all of these things are very much how people get music in their houses. Alexa, play me this song and things like that. So there's just that whole thing of you can still enjoy performing. I don't know whether we'll go back to too many big. I actually quite prefer intimate performances anyway. That big stadium gig for me is not as good as that sort of like nice little tent, folk tent, whatever. So yeah, I think that's what I think is going on with music. Yeah.
Okay, and thank you. And again, you kind of touched on the next question, but I'm going to ask it anyway. What advice would you give to anyone thinking of becoming actively musically?
I think if it's in you, then you have to do it. I think if you're musical, I think that there can be an area in between being a professional musician and being someone who puts their music out there. Well, I think we don't have to think of, I can't make it a career. I think it's actually more viable now to do so because there are different avenues you can go to do that. And there are so many, there are jobs being made now that you and I wouldn't have heard of years ago. The jobs that our children will have will be jobs that we won't have heard of now. So I think that if you have it in you, if you are doing the music that you love, then absolutely don't hold back. There are going to be times when you think, what's the point? Because the government doesn't seem to value, but what we've shown now, I've just done a project for Mind, and I couldn't believe the generosity of people coming to watch the gig. They went, it's for Mind. Somebody put 50 quid in. I mean, that was unbelievable. We're all struggling. And yet people go, I need this music. I need it for my mental health and well-being. So we will always need music. We'll always need it.
Excellent. All right. So tell us about some of the things, because you mentioned about the children's music CD that you recently produced. I want to give our audience some information where they can keep in contact with you. Do you have a website?
Yes, the music that I produce is called ABCC. So we've got the alphabet thing going on there, but the A is for action, the B is for bonding, not bondage. The C is for a cuddle or a cwtch, as we'd say in Wales, although the music's in English. And then the other C is for calm, but the CC actually is my youngest daughter's nickname, CC, short for Cecilia. So therein comes the ABCC. Now that's all on my Voice Care website. You can buy it directly from voicecare.co.uk. And this is where you can listen to a couple of the feel-good songs and learn about how to work with me as a voice coach. And you can also get that on Bandcamp. Now, Bandcamp is a good place for artists to put their music because it supports and respects the artists. But it's really for music lovers to find.
And how do we find you on Bandcamp? Hello? Seem to have a interruption there. Hello, Beth. Beth.
I think you lost me there for about a second.
So I was saying, how do we find you on Bandcamp?
Sorry.
Hello? Okay. That's okay. It's live.
What did I miss? What did I miss?
How do we find you on Bandcamp?
On Bandcamp, yeah. So you just put beth-ford.bandcamp.com, and that's how you find me up there. And you'll see the ABCC. You'll see some of my other original music and some feel-good songs.
So those two websites, sorry, Bandcamp, I'm going to type it in now, beth-ford.bandcamp is how we find you on Bandcamp.
Yes.
And voicecare.co.uk is where we can pick up about your tuition, your teaching stuff, and the CD for the children and so on.
Your children's music. And there's a whole area where I talk about tips for helping you with your children. Not that I'm a perfect mother, but ever since I had these children, I'm just writing songs all the time. So we think that mummy has something called compulsive singing disorder. So it's all about helping your children through your day. So instead of going, get your shoes on, you're singing a song about it. And you know, it's just like Mary Poppins in the home, really. So that's what the ABCC is. It's just using that songwriting skill to help people, as you know, just get through the day. And if you put it in a song, that lilt again, it gets the message across. Yeah.
See, this is why the world needs creatives, because intuition, innovation, it's just coming through.
Yeah, I know. And it's still there. It's still there. And I think actually as an artist, we have an advantage. So yes, we've lost, you know, overnight, I lost so much of my work, 2/3 of it pretty much. But you could say that, but also the fact that we are artists and we are creative, we can get lost. So we can get lost in our music and we can be anywhere. And that as long as we're feeling creative, then it's been another silver lining, I think.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Okay, so now we come to the question that I must finish with, and that is, if the year 2020 was a human being, what would you say to him or her?
Was a human being. Well, it's going to get better. Things can only get better. So, yeah, it's going to get better, and we'll take what we've learned.
Well done, Beth. Thank you for taking the time out of your busy day to spend with us to share what you're doing and who you are musically, especially. I'm going to ask, will you come back again, because you're busy and you're involved in lots, and we want to keep in touch with you. We want to keep on top of what you're doing. Will you come back?
Yes, of course I will. Yes.
Excellent. All right, until next time, take care.
Thanks so much. Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.